It's part of the business. A lot of us go through it at some point in our careers. Some of us more so than others. Like look at Dennis. Dennis was a great teammate of mine in Brooklyn. He's on his sixth team in the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years.
Yeah.
And he's a professional and he's, going to attack every day and be himself no matter what. But there is this does impact guys and it is always an adjustment and stuff like that.
Special thanks to our presenting sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can bet just $5, and when your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets right away. Just download the app and use code TEAM3. The crown is yours. We're going to do some Super Bowl predictions, a couple of mailbag things. But before we get to that, we're taping this Thursday afternoon. It's 4:15. Trade deadline ended at 3 p.m. You guys traded Hunter Tyson to the Nets for a second round pick. Besides that, pretty low key deadline for you guys. I'm curious, was there anything at the deadline that struck your eye from around the league?
Before I get into that, there's a real human element to the trade deadline that's really, really easy to miss. Hunter Tyson was a guy that showed up to work every day, did his job, great teammate, always ready to play when his number was called. This was his third year in Denver and, wakes up this morning in New York City as a Denver Nugget. Midway through the afternoon, has to find a home across the bridge in Brooklyn. And, it's a big life change that comes with that. So every trade we get into, just remember, everybody watching, listening at home, that like there is a real human element to this where, we're still human beings with families and friends and homes and stuff like that. So from that perspective, I wish Hunter Tyson the best. The people in Brooklyn are awesome. I know, he'll fit in with those guys and they'll take care of him there. But yeah, it's part of the business. A lot of us go through it at some point in our careers. Some of us more so than others. Like look at Dennis. Dennis was a great teammate of mine in Brooklyn. He's on his sixth team in the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years. Yeah. And he's a professional and he's, going to attack every day and be himself no matter what. But there is this does impact guys and it is always an adjustment and stuff like that.
I think that's super well said. I forgot that Hunter is basically doing the reverse you.
Yeah, he was basically with Mike just a couple months late,
Yeah,
But yeah, trade deadline. Let's see. Chicago was very active, shuffling around. I don't know who's on their final roster, but we play them in a couple of days, so I better get up to speed quick on that. The Jazz made an interesting one. Memphis stays with Ja Morant, but gets off of Jaren Jackson Jr., which, they got a lot of future for him, but it just shows that the Jazz are kind of saw what they wanted and felt like it's their time to capitalize. What do you think of that one? Do you think the Jaren Jackson fit in Utah is good?
I think it's going to be great for him. I think he's going to love Utah as a place to live. Just knowing his personality, I think Utah is a super underrated NBA market in general, and I think that his kind of vibe will fit really well there. Also, they're going to just be between him, Lowry, and if they end up, if Walker ends up staying over the summer, that's just like a massive front line. When you combine that with a guy like Key, who's had such a breakout year in the backcourt, like you can clearly see it. It felt like it came out of nowhere, but you can clearly see the bones of what they're building. And then also, with Jaren, it's like he's a great player on any roster, but when he has a guy like Walker behind him, when he's got a 5-man behind him and it kind of allows him to roam around and play that free safety role, he's just so much more impactful. Like you could see that with Memphis with him and Edey this year, and Walker's one of the best at that. And so that was a funny one in that it felt like it came out of nowhere, but when you actually think about it, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I mean, Utah's sitting at 16-35 right now, so they're a little bit out of the playing picture at the moment. But I think it definitely poises them to continue to make noise, especially when Walker comes back from injury, which I think he's out for the rest of this season. But that's going to be a tough team to score in the paint against. I mean, we already know how Walker Kessler affects the game and Jaren Jackson individually. And then your 3-man is 7-1 also. So
Yeah.
it's interesting what's going on over there.
You mentioned the Bulls. So today they traded Ayo, friend of the show, to Minnesota. I'm sure, we'll talk about this. I'm sure bittersweet for him, a Chicago kid, drafted there, had a lot of success there, but also he's going to a team that can win a championship. And they got Ant Simons, who we just had on the show last week. And it's funny, I was thinking about him when we were talking about when you were saying your thing at the beginning. And he probably had some sense that this was a possibility. I'm sure the team was pretty upfront with him that there was a chance this was going to happen. And this has happened to him already. It happened to him over the summer, so it's not his first rodeo going through this. And I want to, get your thoughts on Iowa and Minnesota in particular. But it is a thing where he was saying on the show with us, he's like, he was excited to play in his first playoffs, and he was having a lot of success in Boston. He had a really, nice fit with that group of guys and with that fan base, even in a short amount of time. And so there's a bittersweet quality to this of you kind of do like he's a good example. And the Celtics guy said this after he got traded, like you do everything right, and it can still happen. And so I
Yeah,
think that's a thing that, it's become such a feeding frenzy for media and Twitter and everything like that, which I understand. Obviously, it drives attention, but it is rough. Like it's rough. It's one thing if you're just kind of reading about it. It's another thing if you're living it. So especially when it's people that have families, and it's not just Ant's a young guy. He doesn't have a family yet, but like if you're pulling your kids out of school and stuff like that, like that's a kind of whole different beast.
exactly. And then he played, what, 7 years in Portland and then 2
Yeah.
trades in the last 6 months?
What do you think about Io in Minnesota?
I think Ayo this season so far has been very effective in what he's been able to do. So I think he fits what Minnesota likes to do as a team and gives them another very capable guard, capable defender, capable scorer, and capable passer. I thought Minnesota was priming to get Giannis, is what it seemed like for a minute there.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder what happened with those negotiations and what caused that. That was the kind of big fish of the trade deadline was Giannis, and for him to stay in Milwaukee. I mean, I'm sure there were a handful of teams that were kind of going all in. But I think the Io fit in Minnesota is pretty good for them. Mike obviously was just a classic vet, just one of those guys that brings it every day, tons of experience and knowledge, and has won everywhere he's been basically so far in his career. So a lot of respect for Mike. I think Io's also a good fit for that team.
What'd you think about James? I kind of heard about this being a possibility last week. But you never know. There's so many rumors. Everyone gossips, everyone's got a thing to say. Also, like things sometimes rumors are actually true, but then they fall apart at the last minute for small reasons. And so, but this was definitely one that I feel like people have been talking about for a little bit. But James obviously going to Cleveland and Darius going to LA. LA's traded a couple guys now. They just traded Zoo to Indiana right before the deadline as well. So it seems like they're doing a little bit of a reboot. But James and Donovan in particular, how those guys, have had so much success individually. How you think they fit?
Um, it's going to be interesting. They have both played with really good players on their teams before. James has played with some of the best across the league, so maybe it's a little bit different for Donovan. But James has, throughout his career, found ways to be effective, no matter what. No matter what, he's found ways to distribute the ball, score the ball, and everybody knows what he brings from that perspective, and he's still able to do it at a high level. It's just that top level of winning that has eluded him so far in his career. Maybe in the East this year, with a really good Cleveland team around him that's sitting at fourth in the East, maybe they have an opportunity to do something big, and he, just completely buys into that and tries to take them to the top. But it's a backcourt that can score. Like James and Donovan can each put up 50 any given night. So that's going to be a lot for opposing teams to handle. Jared Allen, I think it seemed like they said he was on the trade block for a second. I don't know what exactly they were planning, but it seems like he stayed put. So there's some rim protection there for that group. They've had the bones. They've been really good. Garland's been hurt all year, and even when he was playing, he went back down with that foot. So obviously, adding James adds a different level to a 31-21 Cleveland team. So they're better than their record is right now, and they're to be taken pretty seriously in the East.
Can I tell you another East trade I liked?
Yeah,
Big trade. I love what Washington's doing. We
just
didn't talk
going
about
for
this
it.
last night. I love the putting those two bigs with Trey. I mean, they get young guys. We did an episode with the young guys like 2 weeks ago. They obviously are building. They've got some really nice pieces. Between George and Bilal and Alex having an awesome year. But just thinking about like Trey at his best and the types of like think about the big guys that have had amazing rim running success with Trey.
Yeah,
He just no matter what, it's like you sort of pull a no disrespect, but it's like you pull bigs off the street and he's such a gifted passer that he can make them look really good. And you put these guys like this, you put one of the best big man of the last 15, 20 years with him, plus a guy like Alex Sarr, who's one of the better young bigs in the league. It feels like when you have two options like that, it feels like he's really set up well next year to kind of be better, put in the best position possible with his skill set.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely a next year thing, right? I mean, they're about as low as you can get in the standings right now. So I guess what they're tooling now is like give everybody some experience and like let kind of the organization, the team, the coaches know that like, all right, development window is here. It's right in front of us. It's right now. Not everybody's going to be able to stay for this. Not everybody's going to be here because they'll probably get another top pick, and they got good young players across the roster already. So it's just it's an aggression from them that I think is kind of refreshing in today's NBA, where it's like, all right, like we want to get back to competing. We've been down long enough. We went out and got two All-Stars, and we'll continue to grow our talent. And I'll be really interested to see how this takes on in the next couple months and years.
Is there one sort of like under the radar deal, not a super, big headlines, flashy thing, but you feel like is going to set somebody up well for this year's playoffs?
I don't know. I think that's a tough one off the top of my head. Coby White going to Charlotte with what they've been doing recently and how they've kind of been rolling 8-2 in their last 10 and 7 in a row. Kobe's a really good player, and he adds just another scoring punch to them that I think could be pretty valuable for them if they really look to kind of make a push throughout the second half of the season.
I don't
What do
know.
you
I don't
think?
know. I mean, I'm not sure if this is, from a box score standpoint, if it's going to be the craziest impact, but I know the Knicks fans are going to love Alvarado.
Jose? Yeah, that's a really good one. That's a really good one.
I know they're gonna love the way that he plays. Obviously,
Who
the
was
fact that
in
he's a
that
New
deal?
York
Who was in
kid.
that deal?
It was Dalen Terry who they just got. So
Right,
they didn't trade
right.
anyone on their current roster. Um, but I just think that I think they are really. You guys just played them last night. They're really set up well, and I think that a guy like that is. They've had this happen to them with TJ and the other side of this. It's like the guys like that are who you want when it gets to May. And he hasn't really had a chance to show that. Besides, remember the playoff series a couple years ago against Phoenix, against you guys. That was kind of the that was like the one time you sort of got to see him in action a little bit in the playoffs. And then the New Orleans hasn't been in it, and so a lot of those intangibles sort of have not been able to be like shown in a May June setting, and I feel like what they need from him because they're so deep already. They're not going to ask too much, but it's basically just like energy. And so I'm like, I can see that now. I can see that like May that game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals. It's like Jose swings a game, and you can just kind of see
Right.
that happening now. And it's like getting guys like that at this point feels like it just feels very smart for them to make a move like that.
Right, and New York is loaded with really good defenders. Um, between Kel, OG, Mitch, but their second unit is not particularly a defensive heavy unit. They're very much offensive players. So to add Jose like that and give the second unit just a little bit of like flexibility with defensive bias is definitely beneficial for them.
Thanks to DraftKings for sponsoring the show. All-Star Weekend is coming up, February 13th to 15th. We just saw the trade deadline shake things up, and now we get to see which teams are actually built for a championship run. DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, gives you a way to be a part of the action during this crucial stretch. Their early exit feature is clutch. If your player gets injured anytime in the first half, you are still getting paid in cash. That's real protection when it matters most. Checking out the DraftKings Sportsbook app futures earlier this morning. We are taping this Thursday afternoon. As always, subject to change. We've talked about this feature before, but I thought the numbers on it today were pretty interesting. The play-in team specials and team futures. Any play-in tournament team to reach the second round of the playoffs, minus 165. Any play-in tournament team to reach the conference finals, plus 250. Any play-in tournament team to reach the NBA finals, plus 700. Any play-in team tournament to win the NBA finals, plus 1,800. What's particularly interesting to me about this is in the Western Conference, as we've talked about the competitive nature of it, it's a pretty high chance that there's going to be a very good team in that 7 seed in the play-in. Everybody is bunched up together there right now. Phoenix is there, but with all the injuries in the West, there's a world where one of the top 3 teams falls into that spot. And so I think the interesting thing about the West in general is you probably have 6 to 7 teams that can probably win the West, which basically means you have 6 to 7 teams that can win the NBA Finals. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code TEAM3. That's code TEAM3. Bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. We got 3 mailbag questions. Going through these. This is an interesting question. We were kind of talking about this with CK last night, but curious now. And Puff has had his own experience with this, recently as well, from Atiba Collins. What do you think the best way to get scouted is in our current climate, society?
Scouted in a college sense?
College sense. He says NBA too, but that aside, I'm saying college sense.
Okay, so let's look at it as I'm a good player, but not the very best high school player. I have NBA prospects, but I'm not a one and done immediate eye-popping prospect. I'd say the best way is to, and this is just my, off the top of my head, but I would think if it were me, the best way is to immediately go to a place where you're ultra valued. That gives you a lot of confidence and a lot of freedom if you're ready for it. Because it's really person to person dependent. Some people need the environment of the bigger time basketball and the challenge of the bigger time basketball to rise to it, to eventually get to where they need to be. I think that was more my case. I think going to Pitt, playing in the ACC, when people didn't think I was necessarily ready or that level of player, I think being in that environment allowed me to thrive and work my way into being an NBA prospect. And then the stage that it allowed me in the ACC at Carolina showed what I could do in terms of making it that far. So I think my path was more of that direction. But I think there's a lot of argument in this day and age of NIL and everything to be made that go maybe a little bit smaller where you're valued a lot and you can put up numbers and you can, because the transfer portal is where the money's at for college guys, and the transfer portal is kind of setting the stage for big time programs. And then even then you can still be a mid-major guy that really pops, that can make that leap earlier if you're ready for it. So I would say go to where you're super valued, that has a very distinct cut plan for you, that's going to give you the opportunities you need. and then capitalize on it more so on the back end in that portal landscape that we have that is just really wild.
Brit MCD writes, "What's your favorite thing about playing for Coach Adelman?"
He has a lot of it's like a lot of respect for the game and for the way that we play it. Like, Jamal and Yoke are one of the best kind of duos in the NBA, and one of the best. It's been one of the best. He has a really good way of kind of letting them have that creative artistic freedom while creating kind of the parameters and kind of bounds of how we play, and then communicating it. It's not like communication style as an NBA head coach is really, really important. And he has just a very precise style of communication where he says what he needs to say. He doesn't dwell on it. If it's a negative, he says it. He doesn't sugarcoat it. If there's something wrong, he says it. Boom. Okay, next topic. If there's something good, he says it. Boom, next topic. So it keeps kind of everything flowing, and just the information is the information. Let's continue to get better and work towards our goals. And that kind of like information sorting, when you have a team of high level players like we do, is important, I think, and he does a good job of it.
Last question, James Michael 2026. Which NBA player, if you did not play in the NBA, would you pay to watch play?
Steph Curry. Steph Curry.
I think so. I think Steph and your teammate. I was saying to Dylan last night at the game. Because he never seen him play. He never seen him play in person.
What do you think? What do you think?
I mean, the game was crazy. So that it was a great game.
Yeah.
I think the thing he was surprised by, and just as a casual, he's more of a casual fan who kind of watches highlights more than watches a ton of games, is and talking about Joker, just how big he is.
Yeah.
And then basically to have somebody that size who's able to have that, we talk about it every show, but somebody that size who's able to move with that level of fluidity. I think when you're up close, it's surprising to see until you really get to see it. But I think him and Steph are the two, are like.
Well, the other obvious one is Wemby.
Yeah.
Just because you've never probably seen a human like that. It's like you've never seen a human move like that and perform like that at that size for a Wemby, right?
Dude, the like Wemby and
it's very unnatural.
Wemby does. Yeah, he that is true. They're kind of also different too, where like Steph is
very normal doing the extraordinary.
Yes. And Steph is a thing, especially when that crowd is going, when he takes over a game, where it almost is like you're watching the greatest tennis player ever take over a match, and the crowd's going, and he's anything in it. It is an athlete at the peak of performance, but like to your point, who looks kind of attainable to the casual person.
And then
I think about like Wemby,
the opposite. He does things that normal sized people do, but he's 7'5". And that makes it all crazy.
I went to a game in November. They played the Bulls in Chicago, and it was when the Bulls were really playing well, and they were on this like heater. And the Spurs, and I think Wemby had just gotten back or something. Spurs had kind of not figured it out yet, and they were down the whole game. And he had a pretty good game, but he comes up with a minute left. I think they're down 5. He like blocks a shot, comes down, scores. Then they get the rebound, comes down, and then he basically just pulls 2 threes from 30 feet, like 2 crossover threes from 30 feet, and hits both of them, and they win the game because the Bulls don't hit it. And I remember people just being like, to that point, you're being like, how did that guy just do that? Like it's one thing if he's going to go down the block and he's going to block shots, and there's a guard who's setting him up, or he's going to use. That was just this guy is a physical action that, unless you are watching him all the time, he's always kind of unleashing like another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
Thanks to DraftKings for sponsoring the show. Quick thing I want to mention before we move on. DraftKings has this daily drop called Star Power Hour, and the timing is perfect. Every day at 5 p.m. Eastern, they release exclusive offers focused on the night's biggest NBA stars. We're in February now, playoff positioning matters, and these offers are built around the players who can actually change games. It runs through All-Star Weekend, so you've got fresh opportunities every single day at the same time. Don't sleep on it. Once 5 p.m. hits and those offers drop, they are not around forever. It was on DraftKings Sportsbook app earlier today. We are taping this on Thursday, as always, subject to change. I was looking at the finals winners. We get into a lot of the finals winners futures. We get into a lot of the trade deadline talk on today's episode. The biggest jump for me, OKC plus 140, Denver plus 475 makes sense at the top. The Cleveland Cavaliers up to plus 1,200 after the addition of Mr. James Harden, which checks out. I'm glad to see that the Celtics are now at plus 1,500 or moving on up. A lot of Eastern Conference teams. We got OKC, Denver, Cleveland, Knicks at plus 1,300, Boston plus 1,500, Detroit plus 1,600. It's quite interesting when you consider the disparity in conferences. That 4 of the top 6 teams on these draft on the finals future winners are from the East. Not so sure I agree, but I do think that it makes sense that the Cavs have taken a jump. Timberwolves at plus 1,600 after adding Ayo today is an interesting thing to look at as well. As always, we will be tracking these changes throughout the season. Star Power Hour runs now until All-Star Weekend, same time. New stars, don't check late. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code TEAM3, that's code TEAMTHREE, to claim today's Star Power Hour. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Super Bowl, we're taping this Thursday. This is coming out Friday. We didn't get into much football last week because we were doing the Mike app. What do you think, broadly speaking?
Broadly speaking about the Super Bowl, one amazing retool by the Patriots to go from bottom of the league to back to Super Bowl contest. It's like almost unfair that it's New England that kind of had these circumstances around it. It's either unfair or it's that they do something right or they've made good decisions over the years that have just worked out for them. But whatever the case is, they're back. And Drake May looks to have the super bright future ahead. I think Seattle is one of those teams, one of those rare teams that, like, I think the Super Bowl is NFL playoffs are won by quarterbacks. And there are tiers of guys like the super elites that you can count on that when you put them on your team, you have a chance of making the Super Bowl. And there are tiers of guys that, like, this guy is good enough if the team around him functions at a high enough level. I think Sam Darnold, I think Drake has a potential now. He's seen to be in that top category to be, he's done a phenomenal job this year. I think Sam Darnold has more so been in the second category, but I give a lot of credit to Sam Darnold because, like, early in his career with the Jets, people wrote him off so quick. They shipped him off to Carolina, blah, 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 wrote him off quick. Backup in San Francisco, a backup a couple of years ago. I always thought he was way better than people had given him credit for. It's just really tough to start your career in that era of the New York Jets and that era of the Carolina Panthers. Like, just, you're just set up for failure.
In that era of the New York Jets or the New York Jets in general? Is this era?
I mean, maybe
this is why guys. This is why teams are
years and years and years ago.
Now.
Jets in this era, that era, like this current era of New York Jets, and it's how it's been. Like, quarterbacks, what quarterback has succeeded? What quarterback has had success there recently?
Zero.
Guys have left there and become a lot more successful.
Yep.
You know, and that's just how it's been. So it was tough, really unfair on Sam Darnold, but you got to give the guy credit. Like, he doesn't say much. He does his job. He was a backup in San Francisco, turns around and leads the Vikings to 14-3, and maybe a little bit of a disappointing playoff game there. But, like, everybody just wrote him off so quick for JJ McCarthy. Like, oh, he's replaceable, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, he was a good quarterback that season. Seattle, gets him after finding success with another kind of Jets cast off in Geno Smith, take Sam Darnold, and that team has just been good, clicking on all cylinders. Their defense is outstanding, and like you watch them and they just dominate football games. And Sam Darnold, I think, deserves a lot of respect and credit for bringing this team to the Super Bowl.
I have a question, and I'm gonna you will probably know more about this than me, and I might butcher some of the timeline and facts on this. But with the JJ McCarthy, being being a backseat driver is always easy to say after the fact. It's like when you do
Right.
one of these things and the decision doesn't work out, judging after the fact. And I wasn't following all the like discourse about it when it was happening at first, but it reminded me a little bit, and tell me if this is wrong, about the circumstances of how they got there are very different. But like with Brock Purdy and San Fran, where like you didn't necessarily think when he started he was going to be the choice, and they had just drafted Lance, third overall or whatever it was. They drafted him really high, and he didn't seem, but he just like won. He just played really well and he won, and he clicked with all of their offensive weapons. And they basically made the call of like, I don't care where we got this guy, he's our quarterback. And Minnesota did the opposite, where they were like, we invested the top 10 pick in JJ McCarthy. I don't care how good Sam Darnold is, JJ will be better. We'll make it work. And it does feel like a little bit of a cautionary lesson sometimes when you talk about the quarterback play. It's just like when you got a quarterback that's like consistently good all year and is utilizing your skill guys and your weapons all year, sometimes don't overthink it. And it doesn't really matter. I think the only time I would probably, say it's tricky is if you have someone who gets hurt and then, you have two really good options. But basically taking like a known thing and dumping it for an unknown just because you spent a high pick on them feels like it's a thing that, does not work out more than it does.
But it's something that always happens somehow. And it's almost like a stubbornness on the organization's behalf. Like we're sticking with our guns.
Yeah.
We're sticking with what we want to stick with. For you, exactly everything you said, I just don't like it. Like JJ McCarthy missed the season, is just unproven as an NFL quarterback. Naturally, it's not his fault. He never kind of, in my opinion, flashed. Like, it's not like you had an elite quarterback waiting in the wing. Like, he's kind of just been like a really solid, gritty college quarterback, won a national championship, shown he can win. But it almost seems like, you have one of the best receivers in the game and you're giving him a project at quarterback kind of in the prime of his career. It just doesn't sit right with me. And I think, do they regret it? I'm sure they do, but you're also in a situation where, like I said, bro, they're stubborn. And so they're going to try to roll with that decision-making process.
Yeah.
The decision is just made. The decision is what it is. It was made and they move on.
Yeah. Let me ask you another question. I don't want to, bring up bad memories for Broncos fans in particular. And this is another thing. We just didn't talk about this last week because we didn't do any football. Yeah. But I'm very curious your perspective on this thing. And he got a lot of heat for it after the fact. But this thing with these NFL coaches now of just going for it all the time and being like, it's 4th and 2 with 2 minutes left in the first quarter. Like, fuck it, we're going for it. And I think that the heat with Peyton and Stidham was very well deserved because you have a backup quarterback in crazy weather, and neither team has any, offensive movement whatsoever. So like odds are it's probably not going to be a 30-27 game. So take the points. But I thought this even with the Bears. The Bears did this. The Bears were doing it all playoffs, and it was one of those things where like it didn't work way more than it did. And I get some of the analytics say to go do this. But you think about that Rams game, where you lose in overtime. And I'm like, if you kick the field goal 3 different times in that game, the game doesn't go to overtime. And I feel like teams have been doing this constantly. And I kind of wonder if maybe this past week is going to revert back a little bit more to the, hey, I get it if it's 4th and inches at the goal line, out of principle, you got to go for it. But like if it's 4th and 3, especially if it's not the end of the game, like just kick the field goal and kick the can down the road a little bit.
I like to err on the side of aggression in these things. I know the hindsight's always 20/20, and it's so easy to say this, that, the other now. I think in the case of the Broncos, And the weather at the first time they went for it wasn't quite too bad yet, right? It was still
Yeah, it was still
holding
nicer. It
up.
was still better. Yeah.
But I think you could just chalk it up to it being the mindset of the game and how the team wants to approach the game as being the aggressors. But you're absolutely right. When you have a backup quarterback, why not just take the points and ride that wave? You have an elite defense against a younger Patriot offense, against a young quarterback in the cold. Like I'm with you. I would have, you know, not second thought Sean Payton if he's like, I'm gonna trust my defense today and they're gonna get it done. But you look at some guys, like I think maybe Harbaugh, especially these last couple of years in Baltimore, is like the ultimate example of he was always the more conservative, trust your defense type. And these past couple of years, bro, it has been coming back to bite him in the ass. Like his teams were giving up leads, fourth quarter leads, and that conservative trust your defense football. It almost just made them seem like they weren't the aggressors in the game. The other teams just took advantage of it time in, time again. So
Yeah.
I think it's just like a mindset of these coaches. Like we're going to be the aggressors in your territory. We're going to be the aggressors, and if we don't convert on these fourth downs, good luck going 80, 90 yards to score. We don't want to give
Yeah.
you a field goal, and then the way the kickoff rules are now, give you possession, pretty consistently at the 30, 35-yard line.
Prediction wise for Sunday, we haven't had a good Drake playoff game yet. Weather has been crazy, and in his defense,
It's
he's faced extremely good defenses.
very good
He's faced
defenses and really bad weather.
he's faced two of the best defenses in the NFL. But he's facing another one on Sunday, so it's not like that part of it's getting any easier. What do you think?
I'm gonna roll with the Patriots, but that comes from a biased perspective. I think the Seahawks are super tough. And to put that on a young quarterback to go out there and win that game, which is what Drake's going to have to do. Drake's going to have to go out there and win this one. More so than he had to the other ones. He's going to have to go out there and win this one, which he can, which it doesn't even have to be a perfect box score. He's going to have to step up and make a lot of plays to win this one. But that's my guy. I'm rolling with him. I've never been a Patriots fan ever in my life, but count me in this time around.
It'll be crazy if they win this.
It would be.
Like,
and it's because the Seahawks.
Think about the Bengals. Think about the Bengals. Honestly, think about 85% of the teams in the league and the shit that they've gone through
over the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah. And then the Pats to basically go reverse this quickly and actually win.
Like I said, it's unfair. It's kind of unfair.
Yeah, it's not cool.
But there's an underrated element to it here that, like, the Seahawks have been an elite football team that have found ways to win games, found a lot of ways to win games. So for the Patriots to win, they are going to have to play A+ football. No way around it. The Seahawks are not going to let you slip. And you also have to give a lot of credit to them over there. New quarterback, newer coach. Like, they were not supposed to be this. And in one of the best divisions in football. Like, their division
for sure. I was going to also think about with Seattle, like, they didn't win as much as Brady and Belichick did, but they had their own little dynasty. Maybe dynasty is a strong word, but like they had their own like sustained Super Bowl plus going to the Super Bowl plus like going deep in the playoffs every year. Obviously, it's a completely different roster, completely different staff, completely different everything. And they just came back and did this, like you said, sort of under the radar, where they have an extremely anonymous team. Like if they win, that's kind of the funny thing people are saying about this game. The ratings Super Bowl ratings are going to be amazing regardless, but like there's not a lot of household names in this game. Like this is full on. You're gonna have a hero on one side who nobody in America knows who they are, which is kind of cool, I think.
But it's been two football teams that have been the picture of consistent over the last, over this season. And I mean, like I was saying, bro, Seattle, they were not even the Super Bowl favorites out of their own division, let alone conference. And so for them to make it this far and do so in a convincing fashion, I think that they do have the upper hand in this one. but I'm rolling with the Patriots. What do you think of Tom Brady's comments? He said he doesn't have a horse in the race and he doesn't care who wins.
I'm always sympathetic with stuff like that because I think he's gotten way better as a broadcaster this year. Like I think his games are literally night and day. But I'm always sympathetic when people are making that transition into being like full-time media, trying to be politically correct, trying to like
and
you kind of have a lot of things going on in your
team, right?
Well, that's too like going into, and I feel like I could understand his logic of just being like, yeah, I won a lot here, but I'm not, walking around wearing, Pat's jersey everywhere, and I don't think it's I don't think that's that crazy. I just think that you could. I think that he's, he sort of transcends teams in a way. Even what he did in Tampa, like just going down there and winning right away. And so it definitely just should not be like thing that people should be pissed about. It's a little bit like
only people that are pissed about it are Patriots people.
Yeah,
I think he's totally in the right.
Yeah, I'll tell you the guy. I think the Seahawks are going to win, but if the Pats have a hero, if we have this conversation on Monday and the Pats have a hero, obviously Drake's got to play well, and the weather's going to be good, so it's not going to be 10-7. But Christian Gonzalez, that's the dude who's like.
Is he gonna? I don't know how the Seahawks play, but to pull the Jackson Smith and Jigba matchup, that's one to watch.
That feels like if we're gonna look back and you're gonna be like that they did it, it's gonna be because they were able to shut that down, or like you can't really shut it down, but limit it, because no one's been able to do it all year. You
have a score prediction. We got to do a score prediction.
Yeah, let me think about it for a second. I'm going. I think it's gonna be a good game. I'm going 27-23 Seahawks, and I think the Pats will have the ball with a chance to win, and they will not win at the end of the game.
I'll go 24-20 Pats. We both just said kind of like normal like football prediction type scores. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit nastier of a score, like an 18-16 or 20-19, something weird like that, Yeah, I hope it's not low score. I hope there's points. All I ask for is points. I love offense. Let's get some points.
12-9.
That's nasty. We would rather forget. Let's have a points Super Bowl.
All right, y'all. We'll check back in next week.